Welcome back to TESOL Methods Explained with TESOL with Mickey and Ida. I'm Mickey, and today we're looking at what CBLT is, where it comes from, how it works, and why it remains both influential and controversial today. Let's get stuck in then and think first of all about what is CBLT. So CBLT applies principles from competency-based education to the language teaching classroom. So it is an outcomes-based approach focused on what learners can do with language rather than what they know about the language. Proficiency is defined as demonstrable performance, not grammatical coverage. The syllabus is built around competencies in real-world tasks. So instead of units like present perfect, you get competencies such as follow instructions to carry out a task, ask for and give clarification, respond appropriately to a supervisor's comments, read forms or written instructions. These competencies are usually organized into modules with narrow, immediately meaningful objectives. CBLT emerged in the United States in the 1970s, and this was alongside the wider competency-based education movement. So it became especially prominent in adult TESOL classrooms. An example of this is the workplace English and settlement program. So by the early 1980s, it was described as a major development in adult TESOL, and by the 1990s, it had strong support from policymakers. So in some periods, access to funding or federal assistance required enrollment in policy-based programs. So CBLT spread not only because of the pedagogical logic of it, but because it fit an accountability framework, something which is really important to policymakers such as politicians and civil servants. CBLT sits within a longer history of outcomes-focused education. And if you want to know more about that, you can check out some of our episodes in this series. Let's think very quickly then about the defining features of CBLT, and we can get these from the literature. So the literature gives us 8 features that together define CBLT. So number 1 is successful functioning in society, and this is where learners develop autonomy to cope with real-world demands. Number 2 is the life skills focus. So language is taught as communication about concrete tasks. Number 3 is performance-centered orientation. So in this case, outcomes are observable behaviors learners can demonstrate. Number 4 is modularized instruction. So here, this is about objectives, and these objectives are broken down into meaningful units and sub-objectives. Number 5 is explicit outcomes stated in advance. So learners know exactly what is expected of them and what they need to do. Number 6 is continuous assessment. So here learners are pre-tested, taught, and then post-tested, something which is kind of useful in the classroom if you want to measure the success of your activities or tasks. Number 7 is demonstrated mastery. Now, as you know, if you've watched our videos, I'm not a particular fan of the word mastery, but hey, let's just go with it for now. So if mastery is not achieved, learners continue working on an objective and are retested. Number 8 is individualized, learner-centered instruction. And this is all about pace and content that can be adapted to the learner's needs. So therefore, in many CBLT systems, program evaluation is also tied to test outcomes. So we're seeing like many elements of the curriculum coming into this method. That's part of why CBLT gains such strong political support from those seeking accountability for educational investment, because there was so much measurability built into it. Let's think then about theory of language and learning. So what theory influences this? CBLT is built on a functional and interactional view of language. This means that language is treated as a tool for achieving goals in everyday life. Real-world encounters are analysed into teachable and accessible components. This could sometimes be described as like a mosaic view of competence. So there are many parts that you can put together, and then once you're finished, you'll see a whole kind of image of what the learner's competencies are. From a learning perspective, CBLT aligns with skills-based theories, skills development through practice and feedback, and often moving from conscious control towards more fluent performance. Practice matters, but it is always directed towards reliability. Performance should be in situations that learners are likely to face. How would classroom practice happen for this method? So CBLT typically begins with needs analysis. So programs use interviews, questionnaires, observations, or tests to identify which competencies matter most for a particular group of learners. That is one reason why CBLT is common in workplace, settlement, and community contexts. So in the classroom, CBLT does not prescribe a single method as such, but teachers can use any activities that lead to the outcome. So it's quite a pragmatic approach to the TESOL classroom. However, many courses follow a familiar sequence. Here's an outline that you can apply to your lesson plan. I'm not going to go through it, but you can just pause the video. Okay, let's think then about assessment. And assessment is usually criterion-referenced. So this means that learners are judged against fixed standards, not against each other. Let's think about teacher and learner roles. So teachers act as needs analysts, as curriculum developers, and also as facilitators. So they're selecting methods that support the competencies. Learners are expected to monitor their progress. They're expected to develop communication strategies and transfer classroom learning to real-world situations. Competencies only matter if learners are willing to use language beyond the classroom. Let's think finally then about strengths and criticisms and why CBLT still matters. So CBLT offers clear strengths. This is relevance, this could be transparency, and this could be accountability, but it also attracts serious criticism. So for instance, one concern is the kind of operationalization of this method. So broad goals like functioning in society are actually kind of difficult to define in measurable ways. Another critique is the reductionism of this method. So breaking communication into checklists risks just really oversimplifying the complexity of real language use. There's also a political critique. Critics argue that CBLT can become prescriptive, and really it's like preparing learners to fit into existing social structures rather than empowering them to challenge those structures and make a real place for themselves in their new community. Descriptors and performance assessment are now common features of many language programs, and this is because of the measurability and is super popular with policy makers. So that is CBLT, an outcomes-driven approach where language learning is organised around what learners can demonstrate they can do, both with clear benefits and real tensions as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment because that would really help us as we try to build our TESOL community. See you next time.